Good afternoon, committee. Welcome back. Thank you for returning for this afternoon session. Part 2 for education policy on March 1st. And we actually do have the minutes from this afternoon, and Representative Berg has had a moment to review them. And so we will refer to these as the March 1st AM minutes that we will be seeking approval for right now. Have you had a chance to review, and do you have a motion for us?
I have had a chance to review the March 1st AM edition minutes, and I so move.
Thank you, Representative Berg. Any discussion on the AM of March 1st minutes? Seeing none, all in favor of approving these minutes, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, we've approved the minutes. Thank you, committee. All right, first up, we have House File 59. Our author is Representative Richardson, and please join us. All right. So our first bill for consideration is House File 59, and members, it is our intention to lay this bill over for further consideration and possible inclusion. So I will motion House File 59 before the committee. Actually, it is, sorry, I have an error in what's on my script right now, but we are laying it over. Thank you. All right, and I believe you do have an A1 amendment for this bill?
That is correct, Madam Chair.
And could you maybe give us a brief description of the A1 amendment, Representative Richardson?
Yes, Madam Chair. So the A1 amendment clarifies that the bill would be applicable to deaf, hard of hearing, and deaf-blind students as well.
All right, and so I am moving the A1 amendment before us. Thank you for the description. Any questions or discussion of the A1 amendment? All right, seeing none, all in favor of the A1 amendment, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, the A1 amendment is adopted, and we will move your bill before us, and please introduce yourself again and do your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So House File 59 as amended would clarify that a charter school that serves at least 90% of students that are deaf, hard of hearing, or deaf-blind to provide an enrollment preference to students that are eligible for special education services and have that same primary disability. The school would not be able to limit admission based on the eligibility for other special education services. As a little bit of background, Metro Deaf School was established in 1993, and it currently serves students that are deaf, hard of hearing, and deaf-blind, and they have done this since inception. This bill would update state statute to allow them to continue to operate as they have been for the past 3 decades and protect their ability to remain the sole federal setting level 4 program for deaf, deafblind, and hard of hearing students. And with that, Madam Chair, I have a couple of testifiers that are here with me today.
All right, I do have 2 testifiers on the list, and if you would like to both approach at this point, I think that would be convenient. And first I have Dr. Susan Outlaw. Excuse me. Can you introduce yourself and please proceed?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairperson and committee. My name is Dr. Susan Outlaw, and I'm the Executive Director at Metro Deaf School. And as Representative Richardson said, we've been operating since 1993, so we're one of the oldest charter schools in the nation. And we've always had our vision and mission to be serving deaf, deafblind, and hard of hearing students. We use American Sign Language, and everybody in the building has access to that. And I think a lot of people think about what least restrictive environment looks like or what access looks like. It's not just in the classroom, but it's incidental learning, things that happen in the hallway. Who likes who? It's social opportunities, it's sharing toys, and it's when I spill my milk, I can go and talk to the custodian. It's, so it's our environment provides that, and school districts by and large place with us. 75% of our students are placed by the resident district because they don't have a comparable program. So that's a big difference from a lot of other schools is their districts actually contact us They come and do a tour with the family, and they recommend that the family then attend our school, and they bus them and they transport them with us. So we serve not just Minneapolis-St. Paul, but we have kids from Hinckley, we have kids from Malacca, we have kids from, as far as, I don't know, Monticello and things like, so we have really a large range. And we serve over 40 school districts now. So thank you.
Thank you. Next on my list, I have Holly Burnett.
Hello, my name is Harley Burnett, and I am a parent of a first and sixth grader at Metro Deaf School. Working as a staff, also serving.
I'm sorry.
Ooh.
Just, I want to make sure that this is getting recorded right now, the audio part of that. If there's a mic, if, we are on the microphone.
Yep, I am mic'd.
And I do apologize. I thought that was probably fine. I just wanted to make sure, and I apologize for interrupting the testimony. Please
Oh, no
proceed.
problem. Do you want me to start again? Or do you
Yes,
want
let's start from the beginning again. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Holly Barnett, and I am a parent of a first and sixth grader at Metro Deaf School. I also working as a staff and also serve at the MDS PTG, which is the Parent Teacher Group. I'm here today to testify in support of House File 59. It's critical for the ongoing operations of MDS because it is a school that meets the needs of deafblind, and hard of hearing students. It partners with more than 30 districts across the greater metro area and beyond to serve students that need access. MDS was founded in 1993, and since then, MDS' mission has always been to meet the needs of the deafblind, and hard of hearing students. Every student that attends MDS uses American Sign Language. Its students thrive because they have full access to language. MDS enables deafblind, and hard of hearing students to be with their peers, to have access to language and information, not only from their specific teachers, but everyone in the school. Most of MDS staff are deafblind, or hard of hearing themselves, and they serve as role models as well as professional educators and service providers for students at MDS. Every MDS staff member is trained to work with deafblind, and hard of hearing students. Our deaf daughter, Ilana, sixth grader, and Herta, first grader, both have been attending MDS at the age of 3 and 2. They are now thriving with a bilingual ASL English. They love going to school to learn and socialize with their peers and participate in activities. MDS not only provides an environment to receive an incredible education to the students in their native language, but also fully support them as a whole, including their social emotional well-being that students need to. I'm asking that you support House File 59 so that MDS can continue to support its students as they have for the last 30 years. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for your testimony. We really appreciate both of you being able to attend our meeting this afternoon and fill us in and give that excellent background for this particular bill. At this point, having no more testifiers, we turn to member discussion and questions. And I think we have a very straightforward bill. No questions on it, and really appreciate, and I think you can take this as strong support from our committee. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And with that, I renew my motion to lay over House File 59 as amended. Our next bill is House File 980, and Representative Newton. Thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members.
All right. So our next bill is House File 980, chief offered by Representative Newton. Members, it's our intention to re-refer House File 980 to the General Register. So I would like to motion House File 980 0 to be before the committee to be re-referred. And Representative Newton, please introduce your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the committee for this opportunity. This is a bill that modifies several provisions regarding the duties and responsibilities of the Minnesota School Trust Lands Director. For the past 10 years, I have been on this committee either as chair of the Legislative Permanent School Trust Fund Commission or as a member of the commission. And we've had Senator Rood, Representative O'Driscoll, and Representative Lewick, all who have chaired the commission during the past 10 years. So it's a bipartisan commission. It's made up of 6 members of the House, 6 members of the Senate, equally divided between both parties. The changes to the School Trust Land Director's responsibilities as outlined in this bill came about as a result of the Office of Legislative Administrator's recommendation and a desire to add clarity and increase transparency while providing uniformity with other branch appointees. The changes noted in the bill were unanimously supported by all the members of the commission last session. It just, like so many bills, didn't quite make it to the floor. So with that, I have Director Aaron Vanderlinde, who can provide any additional information that any of the members may have.
And do we have testimony from Mr. Van Linde?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Aaron Vanderlinde, School Trust Lands Director. I can speak to the bill and walk through it with you if you'd like to know why we're asking for some of these changes, or I could just open it up for questions, Madam Chair.
No, I think we could, a brief walkthrough I think would be useful. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so just looking in section 1 at line 1.11, that just strikes some obsolete language. That was the end of my first term. I was originally appointed by Governor Dayton, just recently reappointed by Governor Walz. So that's just obsolete language on line 1.11. Line 1.16 and 1.17 changes the requirement that I sign an oath of office, and it actually requires that I act in a fiduciary capacity. This was actually raised, I think it was 2020, by Representative Wagenius, and she said, "Why are you the only director that has to take an oath of office? You have to act in a fiduciary capacity." So that's why that change is there. That was from Representative Wagenius and her recommendation. The rest of section 2 from lines 1.16, I would say really down to 2.13, it's really just reorganizing my statute so it's clear what duties I have to which branch. So I'm an advisor to both the executive branch, so the governor's office, executive council, and all the agencies, as well as the legislature, including the Permanent School Fund Commission. And I've really appreciated Representative Newton's, former Senator Newton's support for the last 10 years. It's been a great working relationship. I want to point out the first recommendation from the Office of Legislative Auditor that we are addressing here, and that's in lines 2.14 to 2.17. It clarifies what my roles are as the director when there are land exchanges or eminent domain proceedings. So when the state agency is condemning school trust lands, I actually step in and act as the trustee in those situations. So there's no conflict of interest, I'll put it that way, with the state agency that's condemning. The rest from 2.18, really down to I would say 3.9 are just more of the reorganization changes. When we get to 3.11, this changes, so the statute is really my job description. And this will allow the director to establish the office and hire staff. The staff at this time are only in unclassified service. My understanding is that my staff can serve in unclassified service for 5 years, and then I have to replace them or rehire them. Not gonna lie, I'm over that 5 years, and I haven't rehired them yet, so I'm really looking, we thought this was gonna pass a couple of years ago, so really looking just for my staff to be in classified service to provide some continuity to the office. I'm appointed, I have 4-year terms. I'd like that continuity to stay intact if I am not appointed to a 3rd term. And then the The final Office of Legislator recommendation is 3.15 to 3.18. This was an initiative from Representative McNamara years ago, wanted to see school trust lands developed. He changed this original statute and added this language in so that the school trust director would have the authority to develop school trust real estate. Well, that actually goes against what my role is as an advisor. I don't make these types of management decisions. The Department of Natural Resources does. I do advise them on those types of things, but we wanted to clarify that if there was any kind of real estate development on school trust lands that our office proposed, that we would do so in conjunction with the Department of Natural Resources. And that's about the end of the bill. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your testimony. Members, any questions or comments? All right. All right, closing remarks. Representative Newton.
Silence is gold, Madam Chair. Thank you all very much. This is really a needed bill, and we've worked on it for a couple of years just to make sure that the director's authority and his position are clearly defined, and this is the way to do it. So thank you all.
Thank you. So I will renew the motion to re-refer House File 980 to the General Register. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. All right. Well, the good thing is Representative Berg is here. We are on to House File 995. We're going to take a moment. Representative Berg, I think you have remote testifiers, and they haven't joined our Zoom yet, and I don't know if we can just take a short break to make sure that your testifiers are lined up and ready to go.
That would be amazing. I was going to mention that because they're teachers and other school administrators who are on school time. So that would be great.
And I can also, let's see, we can also look at if with the committee's indulgence is represented, who we can change the orders of bills too, since we're working ahead, is another possibility. If Representative Hussein is here, he's not here, okay. And, okay, all right, we'll pause. I guess we can officially recess as we line up our teachers to testify remotely on this. And we are, at this point, ahead of schedule that we've heard 2 bills already. So we are in recess. So we'll do the motion again. Would you like to, Representative Berg, would you please motion your bill, House File 995, to be before the committee to be re-referred to Education Finance Committee?
Yes, Madam Chair, I move that my Bill 995 be referred to will be put before the committee today and referred to Education Finance.
Thank you. All right, Representative Berg, please present your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a real simple explanation of the bill. This bill allows the student that was enrolled in 9th through 12th grade during the 2022-23 or 23-24 school years to remain eligible for free public school enrollment past the end of the school year in which they turn 21. These students would be able to continue to enroll for up to an additional year until at least one of the following occurs. The first September after their 22nd birthday, their completion of graduation requirements, their withdrawal with no subsequent enrollment within 21 calendar days, and the end of the school year. Okay, so this bill is very important to me, and I'm excited to present it today. This bill was brought to me by a constituent and kindred spirit who you will hear from shortly. This is my second term and therefore the second time I've had the honor to serve on this committee. I've also had the pleasure of serving with many of you on the committee again as well. Lead Bennett, Rep. Mueller, and Rep. Keeler, there has never been a doubt in my mind that you care deeply for your students. Students in Moorhead, Albert Lee, and Austin are indeed lucky to have such fierce student advocates and educators. I know that all of us on this committee are dedicated to removing barriers to ensure that all of our students have access to quality, challenging, and equitable education that opens up the world, possibility, and opportunity for each of them. I believe this bill does just that. This bill, as I mentioned, is simply to allow students that need it for a variety of reasons to stay enrolled in public schools until the age of 22. Currently, students age out of the public schools at 21. If we truly believe in providing the best possible education to all Minnesota students, let's not cut it off too quickly for students that are also deeply invested in their education. I'd like to yield the rest of my time to my testifiers.
Do we have Eric Cameron? Okay, thank you. I have Eric Cameron as my first on the list. If you could, if you can hear us, unmute yourself, introduce yourself to the committee, and please proceed.
All right.
Thank you. We can see you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, there's an announcement coming over the loudspeaker. Thank you for letting me testify and being virtually here. My name is Eric Cameron. I'm currently a Dean of Students at Shakopee High School. As Representative Berg said, I live in her district and previously spent the previous 15 school years teaching at an area learning center where I saw, really firsthand a lot of the struggles that students were going through and how that was magnified with the COVID pandemic when schools had to go to virtual learning during the 2021 year and after, as well as some of the closures for outbreaks within schools, and saw that the students who were falling furthest behind during distance learning were also a lot of the students who were most at risk of not graduating in the first place, and also the students who took on the most responsibility outside of school. So this bill came out of a conversation with my professional learning community of social studies teachers at my previous district. And we were attempting to connect and reconnect with these students during distance learning, and kind of learned that these students who were falling the most behind in distance learning or were most behind grade level in their credits were also the students who are most likely to pick up extra shifts at work or take on a second job or did just childcare or really served as the virtual teacher for their younger siblings during times of distance learning, that their own education got put second to all of these other things that came along with the pandemic, and recognizing that students that were in 9th grade at the time and moving forward are still suffering from those credit deficiencies that happened as a result of that. And so this is just one more barrier for students who already struggled with school or may have already been having outside challenges that they were trying to help their family with. And I don't think it's a secret to anybody here, but we all know the socioeconomic data that goes along with people who have and people who don't have a high school diploma. Having a diploma has a far better outcome on your life. And this bill would be a really tiny cost to the state budget overall, especially in a time of a surplus, because it would really only affect a handful of students who actually needed this extra year. But it'd be a huge payoff later in helping these students get that diploma and have all the benefits that come with it that you see in the socioeconomic outcomes for the remainder of their life. So in my mind, this bill not only makes financial sense, but it's just the right thing to do. And here at Shakopee and at my previous district working at ALC, we always try to give the students second chances when we're able to do so. And when they need more time for something, we always give them more time to do something. It's about proving that they can do it and giving them the opportunity to do so and removing those barriers and obstacles when we can. And so this is one small barrier to the state as a whole, but it'd be a huge barrier to those students who would impact and really give them a chance at setting their life up on a nice positive track, graduating high school with a diploma.
Thank you, Mr. Cameron. We appreciate the testimony and your support of the students. Next up, we have Nate Christian. If you're able to hear us, you can unmute.
Yes, hello. I'm Nate Christian. I'm an English teacher here at PYC in North Minneapolis. And I would just add one thing to what Eric said so well. I have some numbers that we had an attendance rate for 4 years before the pandemic in the mid to upper 60s. And when the pandemic hit, that dropped to 23% and only had eked up to 34% in that first year back. So there are a lot of students who were affected by e-learning and their inability to access e-learning. That's why I support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, we have Wendy Smith.
Hi, thank you for inviting me to testify today. I am Wendy Smith. I am the Contract Alternative School VOA High School Director and have been for 14 years. This is the third time I think that I've testified for this bill, and I just want to say that my testimony this time is going to be a little different. I want to give you a little snapshot of what's happening in our schools right now. This year, we've seen an unprecedented amount of young students with hardly any credit show up in our school. They are very negatively involved in the community. Families are overwhelmed. We've seen our educational benefit rate jump in the past year. Typically, we hover around 70%. And this year, we've seen almost 96%. So we know our families are struggling. They're working multiple jobs. Our students are even working multiple jobs to stay in school. The remarkable piece is that they are still showing up to school and they want that credential, they want the diploma. They're just going to need a little more time to do it. And our staff, who excels at wrapping around these students and giving them everything they need besides just the academics, is going to need more time with these students. As Nate said, that the attendance rates, they're creeping back up, but if you can see the amount of time students are in school, it's not enough time for us to work with them in significant ways. So we have to still work on building that attendance pattern and having more time with them. So this bill would really support that. And I just want to say that I appreciate the work that everyone does on behalf of our Minnesota students and their families, and I hope that you will consider this.
Thank you. Thank you. I have no more testifiers. Member question and discussion at this point. Representative Bennett.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and thanks. I believe this is a good bill. Sorry about that. And I actually have had conversations with teachers in my local school district with concerns about these students, that they don't just age out and boom, they're done right in the middle of the year. So I appreciate the bill. Thank you.
Closing remarks, Representative Berg.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the committee for considering this bill. Look, I appreciate the teachers, the administrators, the advocates sitting in this room. I'm just a mom with a kiddo that has struggled, and that is what I bring to this committee, my whole heart. And a bill like this is how we wrap our arms around every student in Minnesota. So thank you for considering my bill.
And with that, we renew the motion to re-refer House File 995 to the Education Finance Committee. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Motion carries, and we'll have 995 in the Education Finance Committee. All right, we do have now Representative Hussein's House File 345. Thank you for returning. And I will
Thanks.
motion House File 345 before the committee to be referred to the Education Finance Committee. So we have the bill before us now, and I believe you do have an A3 amendment that we should adopt. And you want to have a brief explanation of the A3 amendment?
Thank you, Madam and committee members. The A3 amendment is it's a requirement that we trying to have Pillsbury to make sure that they give academic report to MDE at the end of the year. And it came from my colleagues after we had long conversations and to make sure that we give it back a report. And the other one is a dollar amount for the grant that we're asking for the $300,000 for the 2 years for this bill.
And that will be, the dollar amount will be a good consideration for Education Finance when they get it, but a good amendment.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any discussion of the A3 amendment? All right, all in favor of adopting the A3 amendment, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, the A3 amendment is adopted. Now that we have the bill in the form that you would like, please introduce your bill, Representative Hussein, and bring up your testifiers if you have them.
Thank you, Madam Chair and the members. Thank you for the opportunity to have second conversation on this important localized piece of legislation. I really appreciate the rich conversation that I had my colleagues, both aisles, to address this matter that has been exist for many years. As we remind across our community, there is a stabilization, continue growing recognition that currently accountability has been a struggle for many years. And we want to make sure that, accountability for our education, Black and brown and indigenous kids, why are they doing the lowest in the curriculum and testing? So we work in partnership with Pillsbury Economic to make sure that we do our research. The highest stake of emphasize standardized testing has not given the space and respect needed for educators to improve teaching and learning, nor do we have an emphasize prepare our students for the future to enter for the workforce. House File 345 include the work-led Pillsbury United Community, which is willing to work with our schools and to make sure that we do have an assessment and take a test. House File 345 does not eliminate the requirement for administrating Minnesota comprehensive testing. It will not eliminate. Kids will be able to take that test and to make sure that they pass. It allows the school and authorized to focus on the accountability measure that has been identified as needed by our student and family and the community. It's coming from many of our community just to make sure that, we're trying to address the gap of education in many years that's been, so we try to make sure that we be able to find, and this is something that has been going on for many years, and we are at the end to find out what's the problem and how can we address this so we can have to improve for our education for all Minnesota. This is a ballot that we can learn something from it. And we're not asking a lot. We're just trying to find out what works for our kids. And I would like to call my testifiers, if you would allow me, Madam Chair.
Yes. I have two testifiers on my list right now, Larry McKenzie and Kiara Bryant. And if you can come up to the testifying stand now. And whoever wants to go first, if you can introduce yourself and proceed.
Do you want me to go first? Yeah, you can go first. Okay. You go first. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members. My name is Kiara Bryant. I am a senior at Minnesota Internship, also known as MNIC. I am here today to talk to you about why basic needs support, as well as social, emotional, and mental health matters. These topics are important to me because they impact my learning and how I see myself as a young woman. Over the past couple of years, I needed support in terms of grocery, hygiene products, and financial support for my rent and utilities. In addition, when I had to leave home, MNIC found me a safe place to live. These things are important to me because they allow me to stay in school and keep up with my schoolwork. Before MNIC, I went to public schools that wasn't able to help me meet my needs. It made it harder for me to keep up with my schoolwork and be engaged in class and school. MNIC helped me process my grief as well. In 2020, my grandmother had passed away, and I stayed with my grandmother my whole life. I talked to her every day, and she kept me accountable for my schoolwork and would cheer me on. When she passed, I struggled so much emotionally and mentally, but my teachers at MNIC called and checked up on me daily during that time. These are people who didn't really know me when I came to school, but the way that they supported me, I felt seen and heard. I felt loved as well. Having the teachers and school staffs that really cared about me and the students around them, supported students during tough times, is important, and they make me feel safe and comfortable. Meeting my basic needs and feeling emotionally safe in at home and at school has transformed me. When I came to MNIC, I felt everyone there supported me. They helped me with my learning, my growth, and I feel confident and empowered at MNIC as well. A lot of students don't get these supports throughout at home or at school, but when students come to MNIC, they get the support and help that they need. I really love my school, and I came to this school basically when I went to a local public school. I was kind of down and I was failing, but when I came to MNIC, they helped me a lot, and they helped everyone around me. I'm sorry. Everyone was a stranger to me, but now I look at them as family. They look at me as an adult now. And they come, they cheer me on, and they make sure that I show up. And they make me feel like I belong. Madam Chair and members, I encourage you to support House File 345 for me, my school, and my youth, and anyone that has faced the same challenges as me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us and for your testimony and sharing your experiences and your affection for your school. It's good to hear.
And I'm sorry, if I could share something else too. I did just get my own day at my school for March 17th of 2023 for coming to the Capitol and doing stuff like this. So when I went to public schools, I didn't get opportunities to sit in front of you guys and talk to you and get stuff like this changed for students. So it means a lot to me. So thank you.
It means a lot that you're here with us too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All
did
right.
great.
All right, well, proceed with our presentation. And if you would introduce yourself.
Yes, Madam Chair and members, my name is Larry McKenzie, and I am currently the Charter School Liaison at Pillsbury United Communities. It is a 145-year-old nonprofit organization that operates 4 community centers, 6 social enterprises in Minneapolis, and has had regional impact. As an authorizer, we serve primarily Black, Brown, and Indigenous people who are refugees and immigrants, and people who are poor and working class. I would like to thank you, Madam Chair and committee, for the opportunity to continue the discussion on House File 345, which establishes a pilot program to improve our educational outcomes and accountability. I would also like to express deep gratitude to Representative Hussein for his leadership and boldness in being committed to being a champion on this community-driven work. As we have previously shared, Pillsbury United Community has spent the past 2 years investing in developing a ground-up, whole child-focused accountability framework that is built for and designed by the students, family, educators, and communities that we serve. Our students and families and community are incredible assets that bring infinite wisdom to our educational system. At Pillsbury United Communities, we've engaged in the ultimate authority of our community to identify what they believe are the most critical measures a school should be held accountable for and be providing to our students. House File 345 will allow this rigorous framework to serve as an alternative to the current statutory required world's best workforce reporting. During the pilot phase, similarly to the world's best workforce, the applicable high schools will have to administer the Minnesota Comprehensive Assessment, which will be posted and available on the MDE report card. Moreover, the A3 amendment codifies in reporting section of the bill our academic oversight evaluation, which is the most important aspect of our work as authorizers. We do believe that every kid should have a high-quality education. Contract goals are localized to each school, and we are rigorously negotiating between school leaders and us as an authorizer. Additionally, A3 amendment is our request of the state to match what we have invested at Pillsbury United Communities to implement this framework. The proposed grant would allow us to fine-tune the data collection and reporting pieces as needed and as appropriate. Our schools have been a part of this process every step of the way and are ready to submit reporting and be held accountable to measures that matter most to all of our students, families, and community. So thank you, Madam Chair and members, for your consideration of House File 345. I urge you and hope that you will support this innovative way to bring a more meaningful school accountability intended to improve student outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. We do have one public testifier, Mr. Matt Shaver.
So you can stay.
Chair Pryor, members of the committee, good afternoon. My name is Matt Shaver. I'm a teacher and I'm the policy director at Ed Allies. We're a statewide education advocacy nonprofit that works to advance policy so that every child in the state has access to the rigorous and engaging education they deserve. It wasn't that long ago that I was teaching at a Pillsbury authorized school, so I appreciate the opportunity to share some quick feedback on House File 345. I want to thank Representative Hussein for working to strengthen the bill by explicitly naming the importance of academic growth and rigorous coursework access. Our feedback on House File 345 as amended would be to make a small change on line 1.17 to replace the may with a must, so that every LEA in Minnesota would continue to set publicly accountable goals around academic outcomes in a performance framework. Thank you again to Representative Hussein for authoring the bill. Thank you to Chair Pryor for the opportunity to testify, and thank you all for your public service to our state.
Thank you. We have no more testifiers at this point, and we have now time for member questions and discussion. It's good to hear this bill back. I will make that comment. Representative Bennett.
I do have a few questions, Madam Chair. Thank you. And I love innovation, so I think it's great. But I do have some questions based on concerns of mine. So the amendment requires that the MCA test must be administered. That's correct, right?
Yes.
Thank you. But it doesn't require the students to take it. I believe there's a difference there to offer the assessment versus requiring students to take it. And I guess my larger question is, I still don't see anything in here where students must be tracked academically as a must. I see options. So if you could maybe explain, either a testifier or the bill author, where does the rigorous academic measures come in? I'm just not seeing them.
I'll call Sam to
All right. So,
address that.
Representative Hussein,
Madam.
and you're bringing in another testifier to help us with this question. I recognize Samantha Diaz. And if you can identify yourself and proceed.
Sure. Madam Chair and Representative Bennett, thank you for the question. For the record, my name is Samantha Diaz, and I'm the Director of the Office of Public Charter Schools. So the reporting section in the A3 amendment, that specifically refers to the goals that are executed in the contract between the schools and us at Pillsbury United Communities as the authorizer. Each school in our portfolio goes through a rigorous contract negotiation process where non-academic and academic goals are approved by the school's board, and we submit that to the Department of Education. Now, within those goals, it's very localized based on the needs of the students and the school community. And so when you're looking at various schools in our portfolio, there's an emphasis on growth. And so schools, for example, one of our schools that we would have to report to the department that this is how this is where their goal attainment was. A goal target would be a school would meet expectations between 55 and 64% of their students meeting or exceeding their RIT growth projection. Exceeding expectation is 65% of more of their students meeting or exceeding RIT growth projection. And so that is above the national norm for the NWA assessment. And those are, that's just one example of the contract goals that we would report upon to the department. And presumably that would be part of the report to the legislature.
Representative Bennett.
Madam Chair, thank you. Thank you for that. So you're saying that they do need to take the NWEA assessment, and then the growth is measured based upon that?
Ms. Diaz.
Madam Chair and Representative Bennett, it depends on which nationally normed interim assessment that the school uses. I believe one of our high schools does not use the NWEA. It uses another nationally normed assessment, but however, most of our high schools use the NWEA.
Representative Bennett.
Thanks, Madam Chair, Sire. Thank you for the indulgence. I just feel like it should be stated more clearly in here, because when I read this, I see a lot of measurement of inputs. For example, measuring, does the school meet basic needs, type of instruction, the type of curriculum used. All those things are important, but that's not, usually we measure the output, the student output, not what's being put into them. And I'm just not seeing the output clarified in this bill. I'd like it to be more clarified, because I think this is great to innovate like this, but it does concern me that it seems like the academic assessments are optional, and I understand there's these contracts that take place, but I guess it's our job to look at the bill and see, is it in here? And that does concern me a lot. And I'm not sure if it can be adjusted or not, or if that kind of defeats the purpose, but I'll just say those are my concerns. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Representative Bennett, for sharing your concerns and with the committee and those comments. Any other comments or questions for our bill author? Otherwise, I think we'll go to closing comments. Representative Hussein.
I just want to thank you and everyone. And just to let you know that this has passed the Senate, and both parties has voted for this bill because they recognize and see that this gap need to be addressed, and education gaps that we've seen for many years. It's not. This is a great palette that we're bringing forward, because I've been heard from our student. This has been working for them. I heard from our parents. This has been working for them. I heard from our teachers and the pillar societies for all of our students. They want to make sure that a curriculum that works for all of our kids in Minnesota. And I think this is a great program, palette. And Pillsbury, I wanted to thank that they've taken the leadership to move this palette forward. So I would love to, all my colleagues, to support this, because this is the future. Our kids, they are the one who's going to represent us later on in the future. and we need to educate them right now and guide them the right direction they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I will renew my motion to re-refer House File 345 as amended to the Education Finance Committee. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
All right, the motion carries, and House File 345 will move to Education Finance. Thank you for being with us again today. Our next bill on the agenda is House File 827, Representative Keeler. Representative Keeler, would you like to motion your bill, House File 827, to be before the committee? Our intention is to re-refer the bill to Education Finance.
Yes, Madam Chair, I move that House File 827 be referred to Education Finance.
Thank you. And I believe you do have an author's amendment, and it's the A1 amendment. Would you like to speak to your author's amendment for the committee?
Yes, Madam Chair, I have the A1 amendment changes, a couple things, mainly this, the pay portion of it, moving it so that if a teacher is in a substitute position, that they would be able to receive the equal of 2 times the teacher's hourly wage. That's the amendment.
All right, any discussion of the A1 amendment? All right. We'll get the bill in the form that the author would like it. So all in favor of adopting the A1 amendment, please say aye. 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 Opposed? All right, we have the A1 amendment adopted. Now that the bill is amended in the form that you would like it, Representative Keeler, please introduce your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Real quick, because I know that we have a lot, we've been talking about this bill for a couple years. Really, what it is, it's around protecting teachers' prep time. What I've seen and what I think a lot of you have either seen or experienced, especially with the substitute shortage, is that the time frame that teachers are supposed to have to plan and prepare for their day and be the best students that best teachers that our students need, they need to have uninterrupted prep time. And so what this bill does is it maneuvers a change that, as of right now, teachers get 5 minutes of prep time for every 25 minutes that they're in the classroom. We're moving this to every 17 minutes. And so what it does is it changes their prep time from roughly 45 minutes to almost 66 minutes a day. I think that's almost easier for us to compute than the other portion of it. And then it's also stating that this would need to be uninterrupted time, because often, I know I saw it when I was a liaison, I think probably you all have experienced it at some point, that it's supposed to be your prep time and then you get pulled to go cover another classroom and then you end up staying later to do the work that then you were supposed to do during that prep time. Mostly we see it in special education because there's a lot of IEP meetings that are happening during the day. Most school districts don't do that after the school day, and so it's just a bill to protect our teachers and the time that they need to plan appropriately for the growing needs of our students. And we do have a couple testifiers.
All right, I have on the list right now Ginger Williams, who would be remote. And so Ginger Williams, if you're able to hear us, please unmute and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's Ginger Williams. I teach at Horizon Middle School in Moorhead, Minnesota. So I've been teaching for over 15 years, the last 4 years in Minnesota. As a language arts teacher, prep time is everything to me. My ability to grade the work that my students submit within a reasonable time and with necessary feedback is directly tied to the amount of prep time that I'm allotted. There have been years when my class sizes were small and my prep time was significant. I completed almost all of my grading at school, giving my students clear and helpful feedback. Since my move from North Dakota to Minnesota schools, I have seen an increase in class sizes. Some of my classes this year have over 30 students, and a decrease in the amount of prep time. These days, I work to make sure that my rubrics are as clear as possible, knowing that I simply will not have time for effective feedback. I work late into the night grading, even with the rubrics, and I'm exhausted the next day when I need the energy to reach my 7th grade students. Making matters even worse this year is the extreme sub shortage that we've been facing. I've had to give up my prep time at least twice a week in order to sub for other teachers. Outside of these issues, there's the added need for collaborative time. We follow a team model at my school with a group of core teachers all serving the same group of students. Our team meets to discuss the students' strengths and issues, to work to find solutions, communicate with parents and guardians, and ensure that every student's needs are met. Due to the sub shortage, our team members have been required to give up their collaborative time in order to cover other classes. It's been frustrating to watch what was an incredible year of progress and growth in serving our students come to a halting stop as we lose that precious time to work together. All of these factors are beginning to lead me to burnout and question my ability to continue as a teacher. It is so hard to continue in this profession that I love when I feel myself being limited by the constraints of time and availability. I want to be the best teacher I can be. I want to provide valuable feedback and give meaningful assessments. I want my students to grow and collaborate with my colleagues to their benefit. Please give us the margin as teachers that we need to do our jobs successfully. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. I have that as part of your presentation, and I do have 3 as listed as public testimony.
Sure.
That's correct. All right. First of all, and all remote, Chuck Ochaki. If you can come on and introduce yourself and proceed.
Yes, hi, thank you very much, Madam Chair, and you nailed it, Chuck Ochaki is correct. And members of the Education Policy Committee, my name is Chuck Ochaki, and I'm currently the principal at South St. Paul High School, right down the road from you. Thank you for allowing me to share our concerns regarding House Bill 827. Minnesota Association of Secondary School Principals believes that prep time is really important for our teachers, but I want to share with you what it would the proposed legislation would do at South St. Paul High School. South St. Paul High School is a relatively small high school, just 5 miles south of where you currently are sitting, but we're not a part of St. Paul schools. We are our own independent school district. We currently have 890 students, grades 9 through 12, and 35.4 full-time teachers. Currently, our teachers teach 5 out of 6 periods and have 55 minutes of prep time. If this bill passes, 5 minutes of prep time for every 17 minutes of student contact, and we change nothing about our bell schedule, we would need to hire our teachers, instead of having 55 minutes of prep time, would need 80 minutes of prep time in 2 uninterrupted blocks, which means we would have to hire more teachers to teach the additional classes. In fact, we would have to hire 33 more teachers just to cover the class periods if nothing else changes, and that's roughly $3 million. Let's say we try to fix our schedule to do something different, so we add an additional class period, possibly changing the length of the school day, start time and end time, and we would need to hire an additional 45 teachers. And remember, we're a relatively small school. Raising class size is something that we often do to help ease the budget. And if I raise class sizes to 38 students instead of the current 31, I would still have to hire 21 more teachers at a cost of roughly $1,850,000. Same level of staffing, our class sizes would climb to 60 students per class. Prep time is very important, and as principals, we do need to protect that for our teachers. But I have a real concern about the real cost of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next up, I have Jordan Hickman. Also on remote, if you can hear us.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Jordan Hickman, Director of Human Resources at Bemidji Schools. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today regarding my concerns. First of all, I want you to know that I believe adequate prep time is critical for effective instruction. My wife is an elementary reading teacher. My brother is a high school social studies teacher, and my sister-in-law is a special education teacher. I see how much time they devote outside of the school day preparing for instruction. My concerns with the bill relate to the potential cost and the need to provide adequate funding to support the increase and expansion of prep time. Bemidji Area Schools currently employs approximately 388 full-time equivalent teaching staff. If we were required to implement the additional preparation time, we would need to increase our staffing by 30 to 35 full-time equivalent teaching staff at a total estimated cost of over $3 million. During the instructional day, teachers are scheduled for preparation time while students are scheduled in other classrooms. This is often physical education, music, art in an elementary school, and elective options at middle school and high school. Additional preparation time during the instructional day means we will need more teaching staff to provide instruction and supervision of the students during that time. The potential cost of this proposed legislation are estimated to exceed any of the proposed increases to the general education formula for Bemidji area schools and would make a looming budget deficit even larger. In addition, school districts throughout Minnesota have been struggling to find qualified teaching staff to fill vacant positions. This teacher shortage would be exponentially increased, and districts like Bemidji area schools would be hard pressed to fill positions that would be needed. This would further impact our substitute staffing shortage and impact the ability of teachers to actually get to scheduled prep time, as they would have more instances where they would be pulled to cover for staff who are absent, and we are short of subs to fill those vacancies. Thank you for the opportunity to address my thoughts and concerns. And I hope that as you look at this issue, you look at the resources that will be necessary to provide to school districts to make it possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us from Bemidji. I think that worked out pretty well. And finally, I have Eric Norby.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Eric Norby. I'm the head principal at Armstrong High School in the Robbinsdale area schools. As a principal, that I have built over 12 different master schedules. I have some reservations in regards to the language in this bill. After careful consideration, I've determined that it would be difficult to build a suitable and effective student schedule that the conditions outlined in this proposed bill. Based on our schedule, according to the language in this bill, we would have to create 58 more minutes for teachers prep. We run a very common 7 periods, 47 to 50-minute period class periods every day. Teachers have already have a period devoted to prep time every day, 47 to 50 minutes. Additionally, they have a period of duty time to either supervise a study hall or a resource room. In these spaces, teachers are providing additional time and support for all our students. If this bill becomes law, we would not be able to offer study halls for students or staff, the resource rooms by licensed teachers that support our students with enrichment or interventions without hiring additional staff. I looked at just the impact at Armstrong High School by itself. That means that we would have to hire 4 to 6 additional teachers to run study halls, or we would need to hire additional teachers for more courses to be offered for our students. That would be a cost increase for Armstrong by its school for $588,000 based on our teacher cost formula. This is just one example of one high school with 1,800 students. It would be much higher and bigger for other school districts. If this funding was not supported with this bill, we would have to relocate or reallocate funding, our funding sources. I also consider a 6-period day for our school as per the language of this bill. And this option doesn't allow for more student choice or student voice, as it can limit courses students can take. This would significantly impact our ability to be a highly comprehensive high school with programming choices that meets the needs of a variety of students' interests and needs. I applaud the authors of this bill for recognizing that there is a need for all teachers to have adequate prep time. We ask that any bill that is passed does not penalize districts or schools that already strive to provide staff extra prep time and flexibility or flexible ways to accomplish this during the school day. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. All right, I have no further public testifiers. And at this point, we'll turn it to member discussion and questions. Representative Mueller.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Keeler. You and I have had similar fates in this, where I used to be the substitute coordinator, just like you, in my school as well, so I do know the pain of this. In the bill, it did say in subdivision 4 about flexible learning plans, and that districts are encouraged to explore flexible learning plans, including a 4-day school week. And I just wanted to know, first of all, it requires special permission from the commissioner in order to do that. And so if a school decided to do something, I mean, I wouldn't, is MDE planning on having some sort of expedited approval process for that, considering, or whatever? And the other question I had was, are there any schools that actually do this right now, a four-day school week, that we'd be able to use as a model for something like this?
Representative Keeler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative. It is an interesting combination and a job that was really, really difficult to navigate, being the substitute coordinator at a time when like nobody wants to be a substitute. So I do appreciate that we have the shared foundation of that. The areas that I've seen it are more in some of our elementary, early childhood where they don't do Fridays, or what we've also seen is late Wednesday starts. To be able to make up some of that time. I know that our district has started doing that, and it's new this year. I think it's innovative. And what the language is doing is it's just allowing school districts to be creative in that. You know, like how some people are talking about the 1-day period and that gets difficult. We're just giving the opportunity to be creative, to think outside the box a little bit, because I think all of us here have to be really open-minded, and that the way that our education system is right now has to change. And this is just a way to, I guess, explore what that could potentially look like.
Representative Mueller, follow-up.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Keeler. Yeah, I hear so much, because I was that teacher that also filled in many, many times, and had where I didn't get my prep time, and I was a language arts teacher, and so, my heart went out to your testifier here that is a 7th grade English teacher. I was an 8th grade English teacher and 10th grade English teacher, and know how that goes. I think I also would really stress that if we are doing this, that, gosh, this type of mandating is really difficult, because I too was a part of a scheduling committee that tried to look at it, and it took us a whole year to look at schedules from, gosh, we probably looked at 20 different schools with block scheduling and hybrid block scheduling, and taking Wednesday off to have as an e-learning day so that we could do, you know, whatever we could do. And I know we had a little bit more flexibility during COVID, and some people really liked that. Yeah, I would really strongly urge a lot of guidance or a lot of help with the districts when it comes to this, because it is going to be really difficult for them. And since we heard from many of the testifiers that some of the unintended consequences of this is having to hire new staff, extra staff, and how much it's going to change, you know, their budgets, I would strongly encourage something that's going to help them, because I want our teachers to have this, and I know how important it is for them to do it. I just I really struggle with it being kind of a must. But I do appreciate the idea of, you know, giving flexible learning, or flexibility to try something different. So I don't know if we're ready to implement it yet, but I really like that we're willing to look outside the box to look at something different for our scheduling. So thank you, Rep. Keeler.
Representative Joaquin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And maybe one quick question on the underlying language that I'm just trying to remember from maybe nonpartisan staff. Of course, I can't find it. Oh, so it talks about the underlying language on 1.13 through 1.17 mentions the student day. Is that the student contact day, or is it teacher contract day? Because teachers usually have to be there 15 to 30 minutes before the student contact time starts, and some after. And I'm just wondering if districts are thinking that's part of prep time. I'm just trying to understand currently, because what I do know is that our teachers are burnt out and they're overstretched. And we need to do something. So I'm just trying to
And are we
look
looking
at
to
what-
maybe some guidance from nonpartisan for what currently exists?
About what's current, what is considered the student day versus a contracted day.
Ms. Perrin.
Madam Chair, Representative Yoakim, I don't know how this has been interpreted or what the original intent was. Student day seems like the student contact day, but I don't know the history behind this provision.
Thank you.
And I don't know.
Madam Chair, we'll figure it out outline. I'm just trying to find some flexibility in here, but just want to thank Representative Keeler for bringing this forward, because part of this is you're not going to have the teachers, if they're so stressed out, they're leaving. So we're clearly hearing on multiple bills that that is a problem right now, and that we need to figure out a way to fix it, and that a lot of the stuff has to be under discussion. And I particularly appreciate the concept, and I know some of our districts do like time and a half if you're subbing during your prep time, but not all of them. So having that be part of the discussion too. Thank you.
Representative Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chair Yoakim said more eloquently what I would have said, just that just an observation that I think our teachers are really burnt out from the last 2 years. So I think anytime we can add tools to the toolbox to incentivize our teachers to stay and to support them, because teacher prep is also really important to make sure that our students' learning environments are quality and our teachers are ready to go when they have our students in front of them. So I want to thank Rep. Keeler for bringing this proposal before us, and I also look forward to the conversation in Ed Finance to talk about how we'll make sure that this happens. Thank you.
Representative Frazier.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Keeler, for bringing this bill. This is something that has been brewing for a long time. Where we are now in terms of our teacher shortage, what we've gone through in the last few years with the pandemic and with COVID that is still here with us, and with the issue with our substitute shortage, I've had many conversations with teachers that are asked to cover and give up their prep time during that time. And I think it's well past time that we've had some conversations around how we can help our teachers deal with a lot of the stress and the extra amount of stress that has happened the last few years. And I think this is one of those that are helping to facilitate this conversation. I had a good conversation with someone early today when we talked, and what they said to me was, if you put a deal together, make sure you fund that deal. And I think we're having that conversation as well. A lot of the conversation that's been around the bottom line, how much it's going to cost and how many folks are going to have to hire. We are talking about how we're going to fund things like this so we can ensure that we relieve some of that stress and make sure that we're giving our students what they need to have a well-resourced environment so they can be successful. So thank you for bringing this bill. Looking forward to supporting it.
Representative Bennett.
Sorry, Madam Chair, having conversation. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Keeler. So Representative Mueller and I were having a little sidebar that we both actually support this prep time concept. I think it's important. I remember as a teacher, prep time is like gold for us. And I just, I'm very concerned though with the impact on districts. I think there needs to be more forethought, more looking at, what are other countries doing even, and also other states, to work this through so we don't have the impacts that we were hearing from the testifiers. I think this merits a lot of thought and move forward somehow, but just simply saying we've got to do this like this, I think it's going to cause more problems than it's going to fix. So my suggestion, input is look at it more, maybe you have districts pilot different things or something to find out what works, and then go forward and say, let's do this, and let's provide funding for it too, because it's going to cost more money, but just some thoughts. I sure like the idea. I think prep time is hugely important, and I support our teachers in that. Thank you.
Okay. And Representative Keeler, I'm going to but one more from Representative Joachim.
Just one more thing too. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the leniency. I know you have a full schedule, but something that I want us also to think about too is as the teachers get more frustrated and burnt out, I'm hearing a lot of conversations about grievances being filed because of lost prep time, overages having to be paid. So there's a cost on the other end of this if we don't start tackling this. And I just want people to kind of keep that in mind as well as we go forward.
All right. Representative Keeler, I'll let you respond to any comments that you would like to at this point, and also you can move on to your closing comments. And again, I think that the committee appreciates that you brought this bill forward and got people thinking. So, Representative Keeler.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. So first, to Representative Mueller, we've been talking about this for 3 years, and my door is still always open to continue to figure out how to make this better. I do know that that's how we do the best for Minnesota, is when we work together. For me, in my community, a lot of my really good friends are teachers. I worked in support roles for many years, and I listened to teachers. I understand the administration's concerns, and I think that those are valid, but I want to be really clear that this is a teacher's bill. This is what I would say. Our teachers aren't burnt out. They are leaving in the middle of the day and walking off the job because they are past a breaking point. And we know financially, it's anywhere from like $20,000 to $25,000 just to hire and retrain a brand new teacher. So there's costs in that too. When we don't have substitutes, there's funding that's set aside to cover the cost of substitutes that I think is an idea that we could look at that funding and how we can do more. But yes, this is our version of what we can do to keep our teachers in the spaces that they are. We also talk a lot about teacher relationships and how having some consistency, having your older sibling have the same teacher as you, have that generational consistency matters in our school districts. And if our teachers are leaving, because this is one of those components, I will stand up for our teachers every day and make sure we do the best that we can, knowing that ongoing we can work together to make it the best that we all feel like we can do for Minnesota and our teachers. I appreciate the support. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Representative Keeler. And with that, Representative Keeler renews her motion to re-refer House File 827 as amended to the Education Finance Committee. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, the motion carries, and House File 827 will be in the Education Finance Committee. Our next bill is House File 562, and Representative Edelson. Thank you for joining us. All right. All right, thank you. Members, it's our intention to re-refer House File 562 to the Education Finance Committee. So I will move House File 562 before us for Representative Edelson. All right, Representative Edelson, I don't believe that you have any amendments at this point.
There are no amendments,
All
Madam
right.
Chair.
All right, so Representative Edelson, please introduce yourself and introduce your bill.
Great. Heather Edelson, I represent 50A, which is Edina and Bloomington. Good to see you all. Feeling the middle kind of session starting to hit, right? We're really busy, long days. Okay, well, House File 562 is a bill that's been around the legislature for a few years. This is due process time, just like building on what Representative Keeler just proposed before review, but it's specific to due process paperwork for our special education teachers. I have 2 children that were born very early, and I have been followed by, or they were followed by the Birth to 3 program and have interacted with special education their entire life. So this is deeply personal and meaningful for me. We have a set of mostly federal standards that need to be met for our students in the state of Minnesota, but there are also some state requirements. We do not give our teachers, our special educations, nearly enough teachers nearly enough time to do all of the paperwork. On average, I'm sure you'll hear from testimony, special education teachers are doing about 15 to 20 hours worth of due process paperwork alone. The bill before you today proposes for the 2023-2024 school district year, for the school year, that teachers would have 1 hour of time, and it also proposes on page 2 of the bill, it requires districts to negotiate with teachers, the representative of the teachers of Minnesota, to really work on some of the examples of how you could deal with some of the due process paperwork time. And we have some creative examples. I believe one of the testifiers may be talking about that current districts are doing. I know in Edina that we do have groups that work together to try to make it a little easier. But with that, Madam Chair, I will move to my testifiers.
Thank you. We have 2 remote testifiers to help with the presentation. The first I have on the list is Jason Ortiz Crespin. If you can hear us, please unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Jason Ortiz Crespin, and I've been a special education teacher for 6 years now in the Burnsville area. I'm currently a K through 5 elementary teacher. So I see all different grades of children who require special needs assistance. I'm here to raise my voice for myself and my coworkers who play an absolutely essential role caring for some of the most vulnerable students and who are entirely overworked and undersupported. With critical staffing shortages and unmanageable caseloads, special education teachers have to make impossible choices every day between helping a student in crisis, giving students the instruction they need, and completing mandatory but tedious and often repetitive paperwork. Right now, almost every special education teacher in all of these districts is working overtime without pay to meet their students' needs and getting burned out very quickly. It is nearly impossible to meet the obligation and timelines of general and special education teachers during our prep time. Excuse me. We need to meet with general education teachers about our caseloads because we share students. We have to process monitor to see how our students are improving or not improving, and write IEPs. This is all going on while we also write evaluations, meet with parents, social workers, psychologists, principals, and occupational therapists during the school day, and be open for parents and other teachers, and of course students that may need to meet with us outside of what I mentioned. Mind you, everything I've mentioned is mandated by law. Most of us spend our weekends trying to catch up. I use my lunchtime every day to work, and as an example, last year of all of my lunchtime, I was able to only take 30% of my lunches and 40% of my preps. And I'm right on that pace this year. Minnesota is facing a critical educator shortage, but special education professionals are the most needed and most understaffed. When special education teachers leave the profession, lack of time to complete due process paperwork is always the main reason, which in turn is called burnout. This bill would be, excuse me again, this bill would be transformational for the profession. It would give districts options to address lack of due process time, allowing them to work with SPED teachers on what works best for them. One option was added just now via amendment, the ability to have evaluation teams perform annual evaluations, each of which can take 10 hours or more per student to complete. We need to make these changes now, not only to improve the lives of special education teachers, but because our students deserve SPED teachers with more to meet their needs. I think we all agree that every student in Minnesota deserves a world-class education, and that absolutely needs to include our special education students. I really want to take this time to thank you for listening to me, and I wish you a good afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us. Next up is Jana Hedlund. If you can hear us.
Good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Jana Hedlund. I'm a special education teacher in the North St. Paul Maplewood Oakdale School District, ISD 622. And a lot of what Jason said really resonated with me as the things that I see every day in my work life. I'm here to testify in support of House File 562 and to speak specifically to a strategy for streamlining due process requirements in special education. I appreciate the flexibility this bill allows districts to support their teachers in ways that are meaningful for them. One way this can happen is by using an evaluation team. 4 years ago, ISD 622 established an evaluation team responsible for completing all initial and reevaluations for special education services. The team is made up of our school psychologists and teachers whose full-time duty is to conduct educational evaluations. Members of the evaluation team complete the necessary testing and compile the results in the final evaluation report that is shared with the student's IEP team. Having a group of psychologists and teachers committed to this task ensures a more efficient and thorough process, and it takes that additional workload off the plates of classroom teachers. Having this evaluation team in place has not completely resolved the demands that due process requirements put on my day-to-day workload, but it has been a step in the right direction. As a classroom teacher, this system means that I'm not pulled away from instructional time to test students one-on-one, and it saves me hours of time that would have been spent writing the final evaluation report. This is time that I can instead spend designing and delivering meaningful, specialized instruction for my students. ISD 622 has been able to maintain its evaluation team within our current budget, but it has come at a cost. It has meant that all of our school psychologists were pulled from our school buildings. We also lost FTE for special education teachers in our buildings, which resulted in larger class and caseload sizes. With the revenue tied to House File 562, school districts across Minnesota can implement similar systems for streamlining how due process requirements are met without impacting class size or by taking critical mental health resources out of our school. I ask for your support of House File 562. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. I have a public testifier, Dr. Laura Pringley-Kyle.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Laura Pringley-Kyle. Thank you for all you do on behalf of students in Minnesota. Special shout out to Representative Edelson for authoring this bill and her help on multiple issues related to special education. I appreciate the time to speak with you this afternoon about this important topic today. I have spent 3 decades in special education, the past 15 years as the proud director of specialized education services in the Eastern Carver County School District. And I actually live in Representative Edelson's district of Edina. Today, I am representing 632 Minnesota administrators for special education, otherwise known as MACE. I'm extremely passionate and dedicated to MACE's legislative priorities of equitable and sustainable funding systems, mental health supports for students, and qualified workforce. The intention of this bill positively impacts all three of our priorities and components. I'm also the proud mom of 3 adult children. Our youngest is currently student teaching and will graduate in May with a special education teaching license. As a mom and a special education administrator, I'm extremely proud of our daughter's journey, but also cautious and nervous about her teaching future, given what we know and are experiencing with teacher retention and real life realities regarding our qualified special education workforce. MACE does not oppose this bill, but we do have concerns. While we're grateful for the bill and allocated funding for due process and prep time, the realities of finding qualified staff to allow preparation time may be challenging in some districts. We definitely agree that special education teachers are under stress as there is a significant shortage of staff. This results in additional responsibilities and concern about meeting the needs of the students. The intent behind this bill is appreciated and so important for the retention and wellness of our staff. In Eastern Carver County Schools, I ask our 388 team members to complete what we call wellness surveys. These are questions related to their ability to complete their work, manage their stress levels, check in about administrative supports, and ask about their job satisfaction. In December, 100% of our staff submitted their survey results, really great response rate, and all areas improved from last year. However, the lowest overall area continues to be teachers not being able to complete majority of their work during a typical work week as a direct result of the paperwork and due process requirements. Students gain the most benefit when they have qualified teachers in front of them. Adding additional time for paperwork during the student day removes teachers from the classroom. This also means teachers have less time during the day to implement IEP services and related services within their schedule, and less time for students to access their specialized instruction. With less time to implement individual education plans, we are worried that districts may need to create additional positions to cover the needs. The shortage of teachers, substitutes, and all other positions in special education is real. I'd like to thank my colleague, Dan Arbogast, for testifying this morning on a bill to increase the special education pipeline. We are not able to successfully fill current positions with the candidate pool in Minnesota.
And Ms. Pringley-Kyle, I'm sorry that we've gone over our public testimony time. Do you have a couple points that you want to just wrap up with as you conclude?
Sure, thank you. We sincerely appreciate the intent of this bill. It is to help special education teachers by allowing more time. We want to thank Representative Edelson, and MACE wants to cooperate to recruit, retain, and support staff while they're meeting the needs of our students. Our concern with the bill is regarding the qualified workforce to make it happen.
Thank you very much for providing your testimony. We do appreciate it. Returning now to member discussion, and I have Representative Erdahl.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Certainly, we have a shortage of teachers, a shortage of time devoted to our special education teachers, and this has been an ongoing concern around here. I can remember years ago when a special ed teacher was a member of the legislature, Mary Sawatsky, and brought this issue to us and had bills dealing with trying to do something about the paperwork. And I believe the directives had been passed and sent to the Department of Education about this. And I'm just wondering why we don't seem to be able to really get at this problem. Why do we continue to have paperwork and responsibilities beyond, exceedingly beyond what the federal government has called for. That in the long term is the root of what this problem is. Is there anyone that can answer that?
Is that, was it rhetorical, or you think you
Yeah,
have an
I did-
answer?
No, I'll take anybody.
We'll go with
Certainly, I would
Representative
think so.
Joachim.
I can give you a lovely, nice document, Madam Chair, Representative Erdahl, that talks about the 13 different areas where we go above and beyond the federal government. But what you have to remember is that every one of those areas was put in place by parents and by people that work with kiddos with special needs. So we have tried in the past and have narrowed some of them down, but have at it if you want to talk to PACER and all the kids and the parents and the groups that really focus on making sure that all of our children get what they need to learn. It's not just about the paperwork. It's about the bill like we had for Representative Bennett today to try to get a pipeline to get more teachers into the classroom for SPED. It's about making sure that our SPED teachers have the professional development to move into those tier 3 and 4, because over 50% of them are in tier 1 and 2 working with our most vulnerable kids. So there's a lot of things going on there that need to be fixed. But more importantly, our SPED teachers don't have the time to get their job done and do the paperwork properly, and this goes again to how can we fix the problem. Now, is this bill the perfect solution? Has a huge price tag, and I'm not sure an extra hour a day is where we need to be. And I'm not sure where we're going to end up with the target. But I thank you for bringing the discussion forward. And it's something we desperately also need to figure out, because we don't have enough teachers in this area. And we are going to start losing federal money unless we start doing the jobs we need. Plus, it also ends up costing districts too if parents end up suing because their kids' needs aren't being met. So there's a lot. It doesn't fit on a bumper sticker. I'll just tell you that.
And you have follow-up, Representative Erdahl.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate the comments of my good friend, Representative Joachim. I'm not going to argue with those things, other than in the context that, this problem is bigger than just one area. There are a lot of things involved in it. And, I have, and certainly those students who need this care should not be slighted. But, I have talked with the special education teachers in the past about this. Again, we did have a legislator who, I knew well. She's from Wilmer, from Litchfield, so we had a lot of contact on this issue. And, she expressed these concerns. And so I just think that it's something that we can look at in more detail, but not isolated regarding the other areas you were talking about.
Thank you. Representative Hill.
Yeah, and I would address some of the questions that you offered out there, but first want to thank Representative Edelson for the bill. I think this is a very important issue. It's been ongoing. And during my teaching career, I've seen many elements of this that have evolved over time. I think the intensity of the needs that students are bringing to schools are increasing. I think that we're seeing case loads rising across, quite frankly, the nation. And when my career started, many of my colleagues in special education positions did have additional dedicated time for due process paperwork. As budgets have tightened, those minutes have gone away. And so in this moment, as we seek to address a remedy and find a remedy for these challenges that our wonderful special education practitioners are facing, my hope would be that we keep an open mind. And I think this is a great opportunity to solve part of the problem, but we need to continue to look at the big picture to take the pressure off our educators. Thank you.
Representative Bennett.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and thanks, Representative Edelson. This is a hugely important issue being pushed into an impossible situation. I don't know how we figure it out, because we have special ed teachers that are overworked, don't have the time for their paperwork. There's not enough special ed teachers now, so how we find more to fill in for them, I mean, I don't know how it works. it does need to be fixed. I would totally agree with that. I will bring up a point about the paperwork that Representative Erdahl spoke about, because I was part of the group that pushed to have that paperwork reduced, and the legislature did pass legislation that MDE should work to reduce, I believe it was 25% each year. That paperwork, we had actually ideas on paper that would work. I know Pacer's involved too, and we have a lot of extra paperwork laws in Minnesota, and we seem to keep pushing more and more onto our schools and onto teachers. And there comes a point where we have to look at what's ideal and then where we can really work in reality. And I think we've gone way beyond reality, and we need to rethink and relook with Pacer and some of those groups, because the amount of paperwork is incredible, and it's to the point where, do we actually want to work with students or just do paperwork all day? I know for me as a teacher, I wanted to work with students, and we all do. So I don't know what to say, Representative Edelson, this is a tough one. I support the concept for sure.
I will say that I actually was an author of one of the bills that was included in the education bill, and I think it was one little part that actually got passed. So, yeah, I know that we've done the work in the past, and we'll continue to look at those kinds of things. And now we're trying to do something a little bit different, not addressing exactly the paperwork, but the people that have to do the paperwork and the amount of time that they have to do it, and how we can support those people out there trying to be everything to their kids. And so Representative Edelson, any comments that you would like to make to address what you've heard, and also your closing comments for this bill?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair and members. Thanks for the discussion today. I appreciate all the comments. And with Representative Erdahl, actually, I do want to pick up, we had a task force bill for years, right? We might as well go back to try to see if we can deal with that. In the meantime, it's never one thing to solve an issue, right? We all know that. You look at policy and there's a bunch of different ways. So yeah, I mean, I think, with the Individuals with Disability Act, which is IDEA, we have some requirements. But I think parents, we know that there's 600,000 teachers in the last few years that have left, and none more than special education teachers. And so, I appreciate Mesa's comments, but I would also say, and thank you, I appreciate constituent, little disagreement here, but we have to do something now, because the reality is the reason it's hard to hire people is people would rather not do the job because there's so many requirements. So we have to find that middle ground, and I'm committed to doing it. I think this is one step, and a good one, so I ask for your support.
All right. Right, then I will renew the motion to re-refer House File 562 to the Education Finance Committee. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. The motion carries, and House File 562 is on its way. All right, thank you for staying in place, Representative Edelson. Members, as I hope you all recall, we did hear presentations of the bill. We did have quite a number of presenters that were part of the description of the bill, and then also public testifiers that came before our committee. Realizing there was really not time for member discussions and questions, we laid the bill over, and we are now bringing it back for further consideration. And then I will then renew the motion. We're talking, of course, about House File 629, and it is our intent at the end of this, right, and we have an amendment, right? Okay. Yes. So now we do have an amendment that we'll adapt to this bill, and then also it will be our intent to bring it forward now and then re-refer it to Education Finance. So we'll start by moving the bill before us, and then we will amend it. So I'll make the motion, House File 629, to be before the committee, to be referred to Education Finance. And now we will bring up the DE3 amendment?
I think it's a DE5.
DE5 amendment, yeah. Yep, it's the DE5 amendment. All right.
Lots of DEs.
And it being a DE amendment, I think we'll just, this is the form that the author would like to discuss the bill. So any questions about the DE5 amendment? All right, all in favor of adopting DE5, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, the DE5 is amended. So Representative Edelson, please describe the DE5, your bill now is amended with DE5.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. And I just want to note for member discussion, I do have Dr. Kim Gibbons on the line to answer any questions, as well as Kate Skipel, who is a curriculum coordinator with the Mendota Heights District, as well as Barb Duffin from the Matamidi Schools, as well as Lucy Payne, who I believe is on Pelsby Board and also a school board member. So let's walk through the DE. It has changed quite a bit. And so the House Bill 629, as amended, is also known as the READ Act. This removes the literacy reporting, at the very beginning, removes the literacy reporting from the world's best workforce. This has not really been used in any beneficial way to improve literacy in the state of Minnesota. So we're going to be removing that requirement for districts. It makes clear that a student must not be retained solely due to delays in literacy. It strengthens the local literacy plan. So really the bulk of this is going to make sure that we have some really foundational reporting so that we as a state know what's happening throughout our state. It makes sure that districts report curriculum, literacy, as well as interventions used. MDE will be required to select screeners. It points out which screeners will be used, and then in the local literacy report, that district would report that screener, and then also the results that we will ask them to report in terms of aggregated data on student literacy. That report will be due to from districts to MDE starting August 1st of 2024. It states that MDE will develop a model plan to send to districts by June 1st of 2024. It requires the district to report to the commissioner, and then the commissioner will report to the legislature a larger report. And we will be inserting language that will be a biannual process, so every other year. In that report to the legislature, it will discuss the number of teachers that have been trained in structured literacy or the science of reading, the screeners they have used, the data points that we are requiring on literacy. So right now, we track literacy based on MCAs, not necessarily the best way to look at growth. It's done at the end of the year. What we are requiring in the READ Act is that a screener be done in the first 6 weeks of the school year, as well as the last 6 weeks. And I will note that currently we have a screener already that districts do use, and that is already in statute for once a year. In line 6.21 and through line 7.27, we added a significant amount of definitions that are helpful for members. And starting on line 728, this is where the department is directed to partner with CARI, who is also the Applied Research and Education Improvement Center at the University of Minnesota. That would also be known as the research arm of the University of Minnesota. MDE and CARI are directed to work together in the READ Act to approve and identify for districts at least 5 literacy curriculum for grades K through 5 and intervention materials that would go to grades 12. At least 3 professional development programs would also be identified. Again, both of which would be structured literacy or on the science of reading or evidence-based. It states that the literacy specialists and literacy leads should be prioritized when it comes to training. I'll talk more about the literacy specialists and the literacy leads later because we have no statutory requirements on what this looks like. So literacy coach, literacy specialist, it's used in many different ways across the state of Minnesota. It also creates, the literacy lead and literacy specialist, we define it, and then we direct CARI and MDE to develop training for that lead literacy specialist, who will then help train and make sure that they're working with the classroom grade teachers on making sure they're helping with literacy. It directs that schools are to use literacy incentive aid for literacy. The bill creates an advisory council that can help provide feedback to MDE and Carey as they implement the READ Act. And finally, the READ Act provides for districts the evidence-based structured literacy grants for curriculum and teacher professional development. And Madam Chair, with that, I'd be happy to take questions.
All right. I think Representative Feist.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I was going to say,
wanted
just to make sure that we, if we do have any, especially clarifying questions at this point with the DE amendment, but then all questions. So any clarifying questions on what has just been introduced from Representative Edelson? Because I think it sounded good to me. All right, Representative Feist.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to thank Representative Edelson for all of her incredible hard work on this bill and around literacy legislation for so many years. And I wanted to thank, it's weeks later, but I wanted to thank Principal Maria Roberts from my district, from middle school Wilshire Park in St. Anthony, where they are doing really excellent work integrating evidence-based literacy practices into their curriculum. Also, I never like to miss an opportunity to talk about the public safety implications around literacy. We know that dyslexia is really much higher reflected in children who are involved in the juvenile justice system. A study in Houston showed that 50% of the kids in out-of-home placement were dyslexic, which is much higher than the average in the larger community. So I think this is incredibly important on so many levels, and I am just incredibly grateful for taking this comprehensive approach to supporting literacy in our schools in Minnesota. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Mueller.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Edelson, for your continued work on this and you continually advocate for those who need it. And I applaud you for that because it's a shared goal, and I thank you for that. I know that there has been a lot of discussion kind of behind the scenes, and I just took the liberty on the last weekend, or over our snow days, I took the liberty over that time to read every state's literacy bill that they had. And there's 14 of them, and I read all of them. To make sure that we are going to be using the best and most researched legislation. There is only one other place in the entire nation that uses anything called structured literacy. And so there is something, and I have some concerns about that because it really reflects the reading recovery program, which we know uses whole language. And so that's something that I don't understand that needs to be in the bill. And the only other thing that I would say is, in the bill, it talks about, I did see several bills that had science of reading and evidence-based. They did have those things in there. And I do see in the bill that you were trying to make sure that evidence-based was defined as science of reading. And so, all of that, when we looked at the definition of science of reading is evidence-based. There is evidence to show that the science of reading is working. In your bill, and I can only assume that this is just a lot of outside pressure, but in your bill, you have an or, science of reading or evidence-based. And I still think that is too much latitude. I do. And I know there's different outside pressures that are happening here, but I just think that that's a lot of latitude for people to be able to continue doing what they're already doing that we know is not working. And I want badly, because I know your goal is to make sure that we have kids that are reading. I know that's what you want. And so I see by adding that or, evidence-based or science of reading, that's opening up some doors that I think should be closed. And so those are the concerns that I have, and that's after, a lot of reading over the snow day to just make sure that we have the best and the most clear language, the tightest language possible. I really appreciate working with Carrie. I think that's exciting. I think we're going to be able to do that. That's going to be really exciting. So those are my two concerns that I have right now. And so because of that, those would be the suggestions that I have to just make this even stronger. So thank you, Representative Edelson.
Comment at this point, Representative Edelson, or just taking it in?
Yeah, you know, I would love to maybe respond a little bit to that. So structured literacy, you know, is really such an important piece with, you know, science of reading. I mean, the reality is we're looking at explicit, systematic teaching of literacy. You're right, what we are doing is not working currently. 50% of Minnesota kids are not reading at grade level. It's not because they can't learn how to read. We have to figure out how we do things differently. And just, you know, the science evolves, the science changes, and we have to change. It's challenging, but I will make clear that, you know, while I am still working on the language of, I have 3 different definitions in there, you're right, bravo on catching that. I think I'm being, but we will have an amendment in Chair Joachim's committee to tighten up the language a little bit there. What I would say is that the partnership with MDE and Carrie makes explicit that if you want that grant, you have to use one of those 5 curriculums. It makes it explicit that you have to use one of those 3 professional developments. So I hear you. And I think, you know, I am juggling a lot. There's a lot of emotions around this. People don't want to be blamed, and I don't blame them for that. And so I think it is a careful piece, and I think it's a good year to do something. But I appreciate your comments, Representative.
Follow-up, Representative Gillman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Edelson. It is emotional. Following up of what Representative Feist said, you know, during my research of literacy, this is a national health crisis. This is a health crisis. When people can't read, they can't take medicine, they can't get a job, they can't enter contracts because they don't know what's going on and they don't know what's being said. And people who are incarcerated, the overwhelming common denominator is illiteracy. So yes, this is a national health crisis, and this is important for us to get right. When we look at I forget I got a new computer that doesn't have touchscreen. Sorry, you know what I'm saying? When we look at the language here, in 7.19 all the way to with the structured literacy, you know, it talks about the structure of language across speech and sound or phonology, okay, fine. But then it goes down to point 4, meaningful parts of, relationships of words or semantics. That in itself it leaves that open for, look what's going around you, look what's happening with the context, what's going on, and that's part of that 3 cueing system that is not working. Now, when you are a reader that is already proficient in reading, yes, you use that. You use that because you are able to because you already have the foundation. Learning how to speak is innate. Learning how to read is not innate. It is not something, and it has to be systematically taught that we do read one letter at a time, and we do make the connections between the word on the page and the sound that they have. The graphemes that we have, we do make those connections, but they have to be systematically taught. And so when we have this semantics and what's happening, it does open the door. And so that's why I really wanted to make sure that we have some tight things. And I will end my comments there. Thank you for your indulgence, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, just because excuse me, Dr. Mueller. Oh my goodness, I keep.
It is Dr. Mueller.
Is it? It is muzzle tough. Muzzle tough. Okay. Well, you know, since we do have an expert on the phone, Dr. Kim Gibbons is on. I don't know if she could just speak briefly to the differences between the science of reading versus structured literacy. So committee members just have a little bit more context would be helpful.
Yep. And if Dr. Kim Gibbons can hear us now, if you're able to identify yourself and talk about that part of the question if you've been following the discussion.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. It's great to be here today. I appreciate the question, and Representative Edelson and I have had discussions about the different terms that are used in the bill, and I think that we're in agreement about tightening that up a little bit. My understanding of the term structured literacy is that it's actually how we apply the knowledge from the science of reading. So the science of reading refers to a body of evidence that has been accumulated over the past 2 decades or more about how children learn to read, what happens when they don't, and what are the best ways to get really all kids off with a great foundation. So the term structured literacy, again, is a term that we use to refer to how we apply the knowledge from the research, which involves teaching children to read in an evidence-based and systematic way. So it's confused. I think it is. There's all these terms that are thrown in there: evidence-based, science of reading, structured literacy. But I think, if we pause to think about structured literacy as how we apply knowledge from the science of reading to teach reading in an evidence-based and systematic way, I don't think there's necessarily a disconnect, but perhaps it's helpful to pick a term and stick with it, and not have the 3 different terms floating out there. But that's my interpretation.
I think you did address the question, and we do appreciate that. And I just want to back up just a moment, Dr. Gibbons. Would you again introduce yourself to the committee and basically why we call on you as an expert to answering this question? Would you review that for us again?
Oh, sure. My name is Kim Gibbons. I'm the director of the Center for Applied Research and Educational Improvement, otherwise known as CARE, at the University of Minnesota. CARE also houses the Minnesota Center for Reading Research, which moved over from another department in the college under the CARE purview about a year ago. And in addition, I'm the co-director of the Wisconsin-Minnesota Comprehensive Center. So I co-direct one of 19 federal centers that works with the state departments of Wisconsin and Minnesota to scale up evidence-based practices. I'm also spend a lot of time in the literacy space. I'm the principal investigator on the largest ever federally funded study out of IES, which is we're working right now with 50 schools from 10 districts around the country to improve grade 1 and grade 2 literacy and reading achievement through providing training and technical assistance to teachers on the science of reading, providing coaching in the classroom to improve that tier 1 or universal instruction so that it's explicit and systematic and aligned with the science of reading. We're training all of our schools on data screening and progress monitoring and how to use data to help guide decision making. And we're also working with a cadre. Every building has a coach, a literacy coach, and we've developed and are providing training and support to the literacy coaches that are boots on the ground in the classroom with the teachers.
Thank you, Dr. Gibbons.
Yeah, okay, that was a mouthful.
We are indeed fortunate that we have you on call right now and appreciate the explanations that you've given us. I'm going to turn to Chair Joachim, or I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Chair Joachim.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank Representative Edelson for working so hard. I know you worked really hard on this. I know it's still kind of a work in progress, and I'm still trying to understand.
Just for context.
Like we don't quite have the governor's language yet, but I know he has professional development money in there for training too. Can yours kind of dovetail with that? I mean, this is a value added onto the governor's bold literacy. This isn't saying in place of. I just wanted to give you the opportunity to talk about that.
Please, Representative Edelson.
Madam Chair, Representative Joachim, yes. I have emailed with MDE, and really, I would love to meet with them next week, ideally before we have the hearing in your committee, to figure out how the two may merge, because I think we all share this. It's one of these issues at the Capitol that's not, partisan, and every side of the aisle agrees, as well as maybe not on the language, we'll get there, I promise, but as well as the governor, that this is something that we should do. And red states and blue states all throughout the U.S. are doing this. This is something where we can come together on. So yes, Chair Joachim, you have my word. I will work with the governor's office to make sure that we have a consensus on how we will move forward.
Representative Berg.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Rep. Edelson, for your hard work in this. I'm just thankful I didn't have to follow Dr. Gibbons. So. But I just want to thank Rep. Edelson for your work, even though you called me out last Friday at the meeting we were at. But I just want to reiterate, 50% of our kids are not reading at grade level. I think that's something we have to just really dig into, and what we're doing isn't working. And you think about the bills that we heard previous today about special ed and paperwork and teacher burnout. It has a lot to do with that. You look at behaviors. It has a lot to do with that kids aren't able to read. So there is a lot of emotion around this. I appreciate the language piece, but I think it's important to know for teachers and for educators, there's no blame in this. There's no one's fault. If we want to blame anyone, blame me, because I was part of leadership at different schools that adopted curriculums that, quite frankly, didn't work. And we can dive deep into that, but there's no blame in this unless we don't act, unless we don't do the right thing and do the hard thing, because the science of reading is hard work. It is hard work, but it's the right work to do because it works. Just look at the research. The research, we could call Dr. Gibbons back and she could walk us through it. It works. So I guess the thing I would say is we need to aggressively pursue the science of reading. We need to be clear in our communication so that there are not kids across Minnesota that, based off of the school district that they go to, get a science of reading approach, a true research-based reading instruction, or something that may not be that. So that's what I would say. But going back to 50% of our kids aren't reading. 50% of our kids aren't reading. So we have to go all in on this. We have to support this.
And Representative Edelson.
Madam Chair, Representative Berg, still waiting for you to sign on to the bill. That's what we were at a city gathering, and so I'm still waiting. You email authors, you copy me.
I know how to do it.
And then you add
Let's
House
get that
File
language
629.
cleaned up, and we'll have a lot of Republicans sign up.
Okay, good. So House
Right,
File.
so
If we have the language cleaned up.
We're looking for a few language, points of language adjustments so far, is maybe one point of the discussion. So I think that we had, Representative Feist wanted to make another comment, and I think then after that would be returning to Representative Bennett. Representative Feist.
Yeah, thank you. I just think this is a really important bill that I'm excited about, and so I would like to have a roll call, please. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Representative Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just wanted to point out a couple things, and thank you, Representative Edelson, and I appreciated our talk this over the weekend. There are so many things in this. Like I told you, I don't envy you in this. You are working hard, though, and I appreciate that. I do believe, and I'm going to echo what we hear, I won't belabor it. Words matter, language matters. This is a literacy bill, obviously, language matters. And when we use the word or, like in 5.2, evidence-based or based on the science of reading, that tells people that you can do one or the other. It's almost a little bit well, it's confusing. And I think we need to be so clear here because we know how it works with our laws. People look for loopholes and they do it all the time. We have to have very tight language for that. And I think if all these terms, evidence-based, structured literacy, if I'm getting these correctly, and science of reading, if they mean the same thing, then we just need to name it and we need to bite the bullet. And I believe the word should be science of reading because that's where the evidence lies. And I know the spot you're in. And I just also wanted to point out real quickly on 10.10, that's the area where the prep programs look to how they're going to teach teachers to how to teach reading. And that used evidence-based literacy and it crossed out comprehensive scientifically based reading. And I really think you need to at least go back to the other language because we need our teacher prep programs to teach our teachers correctly as well. And I want this to be bipartisan. It saddens me that we're going to do a roll call because it's going to make us look like we don't support this concept. And a lot of this bill I do. I want to keep working with you. I want to get this right because I want it to be bipartisan. And when you do a roll call, I don't know, that'll be used for something, but that's okay if you want to do that. I would also suggest to get this bipartisan that hopefully it can come to the floor as its own bill instead of being put into an omnibus bill. And so I'm going to kind of request that because otherwise it's going to force a bunch of us to vote against it because there's going to be other things that we don't like in that omnibus bill. And I want this to be bipartisan because this is huge. Reading is so important. The way this is written, whole language is going to have the loophole to continue. We got to be tough. We need to be strong and make sure that we use words correctly. That's all I'll say. Thank you.
Representative Edelson.
Madam Chair, I guess if I put my legislative intent on the Representative Bennett, hopefully I don't know if you're hearing me. Sorry, Representative Bennett, my legislative intent is to take those and merge the three definitions. So I think with my legislative intent on the record, overwhelming you support it. There are the safeguards that if you look at the grants, that the only way the grants can go out is if it's science of reading or structured literacy, which both have protections. If I was on your side of the aisle, I would feel safe in voting for this. I mean, I know you had a press conference this morning, and I applaud your work on that, but this doesn't have, the roll call is, I think Representative Feist did it because she thinks that this is something that we can agree on, and it should. My legislative intent is on the record. If I was you, I'd feel safe.
Representative Bennett.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Edelson. And I guess I will recommend for my team, if they want to, let's vote it on to finance, because in the end, that's where we're going to approve it or not approve it. And we'll see what we can work out. And our press conference this morning was because this is huge for us, and we want it to be bipartisan. But I believe the science of reading needs to be in here because that's what's working. The whole language, the 3 cueing, they don't work, and we need to do what works. Thank you.
So I think we have agreement on the intent of this. If that's satisfactory, I think that we can do still a voice vote, but that we would hear, ayes, but also on a voice vote, we would hear. All right.
No, it's okay. It's fine.
Are you fine? Okay. Sorry, I was just saying that.
It's hard to have side conversations across the room. It's much more challenging. I think that, from our discussion, we are in agreement on the direction, and we thank the author for the effort. And even if there's some wording changes, that in terms of the policy of it, that we can still, that we feel comfortable knowing that those are going to be changed and that we're consistent and believing in that part of it. So for our policy committee, I think that we feel good about moving this bill on to discuss the financial parts of it, of how to fund it and what ways to fund it. And with that, I think if we're ready, we can take, we'll just do a voice vote at this point.
Madam Chair, I think Representative Feist has to be the one to remove.
Yes, and Representative Feist.
Yep, thank you, Madam Chair. I am comfortable with that. Thank you.
All right. And that gives me a moment to make sure I find myself in the script. All right. All right, so Representative Feist does withdraw the request for the roll call vote. And we will now be renewing the motion to re-refer House File 629 as amended to the Education Finance Committee. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. The motion carries, and this will be moving to Education Finance.
Thank you all.
Representative Gillman. Yeah. House File 1187.
All right. We got some treats.
That's what we need.
So, I believe it's Nick. I'm going to give you that quick carve. There's on the top, there's some gluten dairy free, in case anybody, some macarons. Otherwise, we'll let bakery. We'll let bakery. That's taking care of you. So thanks for helping out. You can pitch them around.
All right. Thank you for joining us and for bringing treats,
Yes.
Representative Gillman.
Yes.
And Representative Bennett, would you like to motion House File 1187 before the committee to be laid over?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that.
All right, we have House File 1187. Representative Gillman, please introduce yourself to the committee and introduce your bill.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I'm Representative Dawn Gillman, and I'm pleased to present House File 1187, brought to me by my constituents, concerned for their students, making adequate progress towards their graduation requirements. This committee is aware of the Postsecondary Enrollment Options Program and its benefits for students and families across Minnesota. The changes proposed in this bill will help our school districts monitor progress of their students to make sure they stay on track, earning high school credits needed for graduation. This bill also requires post-secondary institutions to notify the school districts as soon as possible if the student withdraws from their course or stops attending class. Additionally, this bill requires students to provide interim and preliminary grades to their school district for their college courses. Madam Chair, I'll let my testifiers who are online give more context to why these changes would be so beneficial to the PSEO program.
All right, I first have Brittany Schmidt. If you can hear us, please introduce yourself and proceed with your testimony.
And they might switch order if you don't mind.
All right.
They're together, I believe.
No, that's okay.
Oh, is that fine? Okay.
There we are.
Yep, that's fine.
All right, please introduce yourself.
Yep, so my name is Brittany Schmidt, and I'm the high school counselor at Glencoe Silver Lake High School in Glencoe, Minnesota. So yeah, as a school counselor, we require the students to tell us what coursework they're taking through their PSEO courses. And then I kind of work their high school schedule around that, especially if they're taking any in-person classes. And so that they're also meeting the right requirements for graduation. But once the semester starts and we receive the courses that those students are enrolled in, that's basically the end of communication from the college until we get their transcripts with their final grades. And so this has become an issue for us for a lot of reasons. And one is, you know, credits and the students being on track for graduation, because, you know, in the first week or two, students can drop classes, and at any time students can withdraw from their courses and receive a W. Or if they're failing, we don't know any of that as the school district until we get their transcripts at the end of the semester. So especially with having to figure out their credits and whether they're on track for graduation, and if they're seniors, things like that, running out of time to fit those courses in their schedule. You know, these students are enrolling in college courses, which, you know, is a great opportunity for them, but some students might not be quite ready for all of that that comes with being a college student. Like these grades affect their college transcript, and we've even had it affect their eligibility to go to college and take classes their freshman year. Last year, we had a student who failed or withdrew from so many courses that they were on academic suspension. So their freshman year of college, they weren't able to enroll or register for classes. They had to wait till spring of their senior year, or of their freshman year. But yeah, if a student would fail or withdraw from required courses the spring semester of their senior year, there wouldn't be much that we could do to help them because their classes end usually the second week of May, and we graduate the end of May or first couple of days of June. So there's like 2 weeks in there to somehow try to get them credits and things like that. So if there's something to put in place that requires colleges to be more in contact with the school, the high school then can help that student with planning their future schedules. We can help contact parents. We can help get tutors, try to be the middle person. If we can be made aware that students are failing or have to sign off before students withdraw, or even be aware that they're withdrawing, then we can help those students be more successful, to have some sort of intervention in preventing those failures, hopefully. The way that it's set up currently seems unfair to us as public schools because we're financially responsible for something that right now we don't really have any control in. And it's our job to help guide them towards graduation and being on track for graduation. So we're hoping that this can help us to help them so that they're not making these decisions that are affecting their future.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have Matt Foss. And Matt, if you're able to hear us.
Good afternoon. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
My name is Matt Foss, and I'm the 7-12 principal here at Glencoe Silver Lake Schools. Currently, our 11th and 12th grade students are eligible for PSEO coursework as long as they meet the requirements for their respective college. Students are able to enroll in as few as one course per trimester, but could also enroll up to a full course load or be a full-time PSEO student. Due to the current legalities around PSEO coursework, high school staff, administration, and counselors are not allowed access to the PSEO students' attendance, grades, or progress towards course completion. As you can imagine, this causes many issues with student failures and shortcomings in attendance and academics, which often go unaddressed, which was just illustrated by Brittany here before me. I want to speak a little bit more on the side of the financial burden that falls from these failures when they go unaddressed or when we're uninformed at a public school. Throughout the 2021-2022 school year, GSL spent just shy of $90,000 on PSEO credits. Those credits are not reflective of the other necessary items that students must have, such as books or lab equipment to complete PSEO coursework, both of which are covered also by the local educational agency. When students fail or withdraw from a PSEO course, the local public school is still required to pay for that course. For instance, of that $89,629 I just spoke about from 2021, $15,986 were paid towards courses that students either failed or withdrew from. And we were not aware of that until grades and transcripts were released at the end of each semester. This means that's a reflection of 17% of all the courses that were taken by our GSL juniors and seniors resulted in either a withdraw or a fail, which means they made no credit towards high school graduation or no credit towards any advancement in college if they did go on to the secondary level. A compounding issue of that is oftentimes those same students will enroll in the same classes the next semester. So now the local educational agency has paid for the same course twice, which could also result in no credit or a withdrawn credit again. I believe that students need to be held more accountable for their education and when they choose to take PSEO courses. It's not really physically ethical to continue to hold local educational facilities responsible to pay for PSEO courses that have been failed or withdrawn by the students. At some point, I think students and their families need to be held accountable for their part in the PSEO courses that they're choosing to enroll in. Kind of to close what I want to talk about here, PSEO is a benefit for many, many students. PSEO is financially beneficial for the college entities that these students are enrolling into. PSEO is beneficial to the students and their families as it allows them college credit that they may not otherwise have access to. But all of the financial responsibility currently falls on the local school, even when that student fails or withdraws. And I think that that is something that needs to be addressed and was again more illustrated by why are these failures at such a high rate? Why are these withdrawals at such a high rate? Well, it's because we're not being informed from the secondary level as a school staff here to help those students make better choices or maybe get some academic help here at the local school. So that's what I have for you guys tonight. I appreciate your time and have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you. Thank you. That's all for our testifiers today and member comments. Chair Joachim.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Gillman. I want to thank you for bringing this forward. It's a good bill. Districts need the data to be able to help the students make choices. That's the first time I heard the 17% failure drop rate. So clearly we need some work to do and they need the data to start doing that. And we tried to get this in when I was at policy chair 4 years ago. Unfortunately, we had a Senate chair that was cantankerous about doing any policy during a budget year, and then COVID hit, and then last year got screwy too. So I just wanted to thank you. It's a good bill.
Appreciate it.
And Representative Keeler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Gillman. I really like this. I think it's that when we can communicate better, things just work out. The only thing that I have, and I just mentioned it here, is the effective date, because it's not effective until July. And so that means that we missed this whole thing like this school year. But I think that's what this is all about, is that timing matters. And when our school districts are done before colleges are done and we don't communicate, we just are missed. And so it's a great bill. I know we can't do anything about that part. It's just a bummer sometimes when we have these great initiatives that we've been trying to push for years and we still have to wait to implement it in the next year. But I really appreciate you doing this. Communication is key. Thank you.
Sweet.
Representative Bennett.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I think good bill. Madam Chair, is this something we could just make an oral amendment and then pass the bill right on to the general register? Or, to your point, we could do that right now, I believe.
That'd be my favorite.
It is important to get it going right now.
It's like it's after 2 a.m. Sometimes you don't know what. So I think not an oral amendment. I think that we'll just go with the process and have it as part of our education bill that we pass at the end of this session. But it's a good bill, and we appreciate you bringing it forward, Representative Keeler and excuse me, Gillman.
That's okay.
Keeler. I'm trying to merge these, but we will be laying it over. But we brought it in because we know it's an important bill here, and so. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Yes.
And
Thank you so much, everyone.
We're laying over.
Thanks for the snacks.
Yeah,
And the meeting is adjourned.